Hi, and welcome to Boomerposting with Brian. I'm Brian from Bankstown, and I'm so glad you could join us tonight. Today's a very special episode because it's Christmas and I love Christmas. In today's show, I'm going to teach you how to make this. It's a warm, convivial, jolly Christmas family portrait. Now, we're going to be using some pretty big apps in this episode, but I don't want you to get too freaked out. This is going to be the kind of video that your grandma could watch, and she would love it. So don't be scared, we're going to take it nice and slow, and we're going to make sure that everyone feels warm and welcome, and no one's left behind, and other nice things that I can't think of right now. If you would like to skip ahead, please take a look at any one of the timestamps along the bottom of the screen now. With something like this, you might be wondering where to start, but I always like to start with a nice storyboard. You can see in this video here that I was developing the idea pretty early on, and of course you don't have to go as far as I did with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 characters. You can have as few or as many as you like. As you can see, I settled on 5. Mum, Dad, the kids, and Granddad. It's just a nice happy little family, 5 people. All in red ink. Now as you can see, I'm no drawer, but you might be better than I am, and I hope you are. But once we've got our storyboard, what comes next? Well, in my case, it's the camera. We need something to shoot our photo, because if we don't have a camera, all we've got is a sketch, and nobody likes sketches, they're not real art. You might be wondering, can I use my phone? Yes, you can use your phone. I opted to use my big camera because that gives me more control over the lighting and the focus and all these other things. I'm a control freak. If there's one thing you can control, it's the battery. You have your camera. It runs on batteries. You need to charge them to make sure you get through the project. Next we need to focus on our set. Where are we shooting the photo? I've chosen a number of sets in the past, from showers to the front door, in front of some cupboards. I've done some in front of curtains, and for this one I chose to do it in my living room. The first step to any set design is cleaning up your space. For me this meant moving furniture. I needed to get things out of the way so I could put the tripod and other photographic knickknacks in the shot. Once we've designed our set, we need to do other things, like the Christmas tree. For me, I wanted a kind of drab feeling. So the first thing I did was take the Christmas tree and turn it around to the ugly side. From there, I took the ornaments from the front of the tree and I moved them to the back, which was originally the front, but was now the back. And so with the Christmas tree dressed down, the other thing I did was tidy the wires a little bit. I took the wires that were at the front and I put them to the back. That's a recurring theme. I'm noticing it quite a lot. And again, none of these are hard and fast rules. You might not need all this get up if you're only taking a photo of 1 or 2 people. If you, like me, have multiple people in your shot, you're going to want to figure out where everyone's going to be in the portrait. One thing I like to do is set down clear tape on the ground. This lets me know between photos where everyone is meant to be positioned. I personally chose to wait until dark to take my photos because that gave me a bit more control over the light, but you can take your photos during the day. There's nothing stopping you from doing that, and it's technically not illegal. I just prefer to do things at night. Obviously by taking photos in the dark it can be quite hard to see things, so you're going to need some lights. I chose a 2-way lighting system. One was the Christmas lights behind all my characters, and the other one was just a pure white light in front. You don't need any kind of fancy lights. The light that I chose to use is just a basic garden light from Bunnings Warehouse. But of course, if you have lights, you need to stand them on something. I have a proper lighting tripod, but I lost the little connector bit to attach the light. So, as you can see, I just draped the light on there. If you want a softer look, you can use lighting umbrellas. I wanted my photo to look like there was a flash, so I opted not to use the umbrellas. Now, before we take our photo, we just want to check a few basic things. The first is making sure that all the lighting settings are correct. We want to make sure that there's very little grain in our footage. The next thing is making sure all of our characters remain in focus. I did this using a little wooden ornament that I aligned with my spine. If you're using a regular phone camera or just a camera with autofocus turned on, you can skip this step. The next up is my favourite part, and that's costumes. Now I'm going to let you in on a little secret. I just wear whatever is lying around. T-shirts, shorts, jackets. I've worn it all, and sometimes I've worn it multiple times across multiple photos. Now the thing I love most to use is bed sheets. I used a bed sheet for Glenda in this photo. Just be aware though, if you're using bed sheets, they can be tricky to wrap around yourself. It took me 10 minutes to get this bed sheet wrapped around myself. I'm saying a lot of the same words because I'm just... Brian's bit number 1. Always wear your clothing as if you're an alien who heard about clothes from a guy who read about them in a book. What I mean by that is, hike your pants up, stretch those socks, tuck that thick leather jacket into your pants. Nothing is off limits. The more bizarre you wear your clothes, the better things are going to be. Another great tip is to remember that clothing isn't everything. Am I saying to skip the shirt? Not quite. What I am saying is that you can alter your character's appearance by just sort of adding little touches to your costumes. For me, that meant stuffing a cushion in the back of Grandad Amos's jacket. This helped me change the way I was standing to accommodate it. I finished this effect in Photoshop by cutting Grandad Amos's head out and scooching it down his body, and that really kind of brought everything together, making Grandad Amos a much more believable character. Taking photos of yourself can be tricky, especially if you're dressed up as Grandad Amos. Jersey, jacket, big knife, bare feet. But there's some things you can do to make it better for yourself. The first thing is to use a tripod. I have multiple tripods because I'm scared that if I throw one away, I'll need it the next day. If you don't have a tripod, you can use a book or a sturdy shelf. The next thing to use if you're taking photos of yourself is the timer. I chose to use the 3-second timer because I felt like rushing into the shot added to that feeling of spontaneity. I tried to take 2 photos for each character. I would highly recommend experimenting with different angles and different poses. FaceApp, when it changes your face, really relies on those things to inform how the final image looks. So take a ton of different photos with different angles and different poses to find out which one works for you. To sell the illusion, you might want to play with props, just as I have in this image. Now, to achieve this effect, the first thing I did was make sure that the Christmas cracker was in the same position for every photo. To make sure of that, I positioned it between 2 pieces of tape on the floor, and when I acted out as the kids, I made sure to hold the Christmas cracker over those pieces of tape. Another thing I did was take photos of the kids without them holding the crackers. That way, if things didn't line up on the computer, I had safety shots. But no matter how much safety I put into place, the photos didn't line up in Photoshop. Part of my new philosophy is trying to work with mistakes, so rather than getting rid of the shots entirely, I just kinda blended them together anyway. The final result was this hilariously tiny Christmas cracker. I thought that was hilarious. I'm a comedic genius, applause for me. And while I was ready to abandon the Christmas cracker idea but didn't, there were 2 ideas that I did abandon. The first one was a handwritten letter that I wanted to put at the bottom of the picture. I did this in my image last year and I wanted to do it again. But no matter how much I tried, I just couldn't seem to make it work. But you can still see vestiges of this idea. In the bottom left of the image, you'll notice that there's a lot of negative space. But this space was included so that there would be room for this handwritten message. Another idea that got abandoned but would have been very hilarious, you can trust me on that, was Grandad Amos's 11th toe. In the early editing stages, I gave Grandad Amos an extra toe. But somewhere along the line, it got deleted, and I just couldn't be bothered bringing it back. Because I'm lazy. I think it's quite important to emphasize just how long this entire process can take. To set everything up, to take the photos, and then to put everything away again, took about an hour and a half. This isn't the kind of thing you can just do in an afternoon. Factoring in that I had to wait for the batteries to charge and for the night to get dark, this whole thing took an entire Saturday. So if you're going to attempt something this ambitious, make sure you have an entire weekend free. But now's the part where we move out of the physical space and into the digital. Whoa, the internet is cool. Now, if you have only one character, you can skip this part. However, if you have multiple characters, I highly recommend bringing your photos into Photoshop and blending them together, just as I've done here. Now, some people ask me, Brian, why do you merge the photos together in Photoshop before FaceApping them? Let me tell you. We bring the photos from the phone onto Photoshop before FaceApp, because if we took the photos straight from the camera and into FaceApp and then tried to reblend them after the fact, they would look really mucky and you would have to take all this time trying to like but anyways, it's just, believe me, it's much easier if we do it this way. Okay? Trust me. But because I shot my photos at night, it means that when we blend things together in Photoshop, there's very little changes in the lighting, which makes blending a breeze. But as we move our combined image out of Photoshop and into FaceApp, I have my next Brian's bit. A single pass isn't always the best way. Let me explain to you what I mean. With the sun character, who is called Jimothy, I found that just a single pass through the teenage filter did not achieve the results I wanted. So what did I do about that? Did I complain? No. I took the photo and I put it back into FaceApp and I applied the teenage filter once again. But that still wasn't enough. So to get exactly what I wanted, I applied the long hair filter. Jimothy was alive. He was there. He was on the screen. That's who you're seeing. Now, for Brian, there's a whole different problem entirely. His collar seemed to blend with his skin. FaceApp kind of got confused between his skin and his collar, and it thought they were the same thing. I don't know how. So I went through with the eraser tool and just gave that a little clean up. You can see that on the footage here. Now that we've finished in FaceApp, we can take all of our faces back into Photoshop, where we're going to give them a little mosey and blend everything together. And once the faces are blended, you might think that we're about done, but I'm going to disagree with you. We're nowhere near done, because the next major thing is all the color work and the contrast adjustments and things like that. Now, there are a few little tidbits I want to share with you first and foremost. The first bit was just putting a little bit of a shadow between Jimbo and Grandad Amos. And if you're wanting to know where to put the shadows, you can look at other objects in your photo and see where the shadows are landing and just kind of work from there. And it's just a small thing, but if it wasn't there, you'd notice. Kind of like the sky. And the next thing is adding in a little bit of blur. We want to add in just a little bit of blur, not too much, but this isn't a new photo. It's not fresh off the film. This is meant to be an old photo with a little bit of age to it. So we're going to add in a little bit of blur, and then the next thing is we're going to throw in a bit of film grain, and then just a little bit of paper damage. And with these things, it's really easy to overdo it. You can overdo the grain, you can overdo the paper damage, and you can overdo the blur. So the thing is to just be nice and subtle. Just a little slap of blur, and a little slap of grain, and a little slap of, what's the other one? Paper. A little slap of paper. And it's the same thing with the paper damage. You don't want to overdo it. It's very easy to overdo. So, you might want to just keep it nice and subtle. Nice and subtle. Now, of course, the colors are hard to get right. I think even for me, I have far too much variation in my colors. Last year's masterpiece was a bit too yellow, but I think the colors you really want to focus on sort of like bringing out is green and red. These two colors, you just want to emphasize them. And I think a really good way to figure out where to emphasize is reference photos. So my photo, I think there's a few keywords here: Christmas, 1970s, flash. And so you can go on the internet and find reference photos, and what you want to do is you want to look at the whitest thing in the image and the blackest thing in the image. And does that white thing, does it have a tint to it? Is it a little bit red? Is it a little bit green? And the same question for the black. Is it a little bit red? Is it a little bit green? Is there some purple in there? And we want to tease those colors out. And of course, colors aren't the only thing we can tease out. Let's look at some other images and, you know, how dark are the blacks and how bright are the brights. And we can mess with the contrast and these other big words that I can't remember off the top of my head, and we can do all of those things, and we can just kind of tease this vintage look out of our image. Now you might be thinking, surely we're finished now, right? That would be wrong. There's one last thing I think that we could do to this, and I'm going to explain in a very convoluted way what that is. Now, one thing that I've realized in my time looking at reference photos is that color from this era tends to be quite flat. There's very little dynamicism happening in it. And in my photo, one color I recognized as being too dynamic was the color orange. So, like a sponge, I went in there and mocked that up. De-oranged it, if you will. That's a word. And now we're finished. That is truly the pinnacle of human creation. Look, me as a little girl, me as a kid, me as Brian, me as Glenda, me as Granddad, me, 5 characters, me. Now, if you've been following at home, I would like to thank you for your support. I really do hope you've learned something. And if you'd like to see more episodes of Boomerposting with Brian, please let me know. I would love to make more. And from me to you, Merry Christmas. I'm sort of just talking, but I'm going off the script entirely. And so with the Christmas... What am I saying? Not because I'm a Grinch, but because I thought... So that I understand where everyone will be... I hate this. With different angles and different poses to find out which one works for you. That was so lame. Let's get... Come on. That's a bad joke. That's not good. I need to stick to the script. You can see it's not a strong shadow, but it's there, and I think if it wasn't there, we'd all miss it. Kinda like Christmas. Kind of like caramel pudding, or something else that's funny. Is this a funny joke? Is it funny? And now we're finished. And now we're done.